Welcome to the show. I'm Danella, and here's what's happening now. The East Coast preparing for Hurricane Florence. That's actually why I'm coming to you a day earlier. A lot going on in our world. We'll talk a bit about Florence, but let's just start right now with political pop. Here is your political pop for Thursday, September 13th. Trump has signed a new executive order that will sanction foreigners who meddle in our elections. That's right. This new executive order makes it very clear that any foreigner, whether it be an individual, a company, or a country, that if they interfere in our elections, i.e. our last election, so if that happens, then they face sanctions. So with the November election being 2 months away, this makes it very clear that if a person or a country interferes in our midterm elections, then it spells out specifically what they will face. Again, they're not applying this to the 2016 election, but hey, some progress is good. I'm DanellaNOW, and that was your political pop. Now, also in the news this week, and again, everybody is focused on Florence, trying to figure out exactly where this impact will be, but then also for how long, how widespread it'll be. And so much is going on with that. But also big news this week is that the FDA is cracking down on e-cigarette companies, and specifically as it relates to teens. A big concern. Right now, they're saying that here in the US, about 12% of high school students use e-cigarettes at least once a month. And most of these e-cigarettes contain nicotine, which is addictive, and they say affects brain development. So, of course, this is paramount. Also, big news is Serena Williams. All right, let me just first say I'm not a big tennis watcher. So let me just say that. But I received an email from one of my subscribers. What's up, H? He sent an email and just sent me a link to an article that I believe his sister wrote. It was in the Washington Post. And she's a journalist. Her name is Nafari. And it was interesting. She's not only played tennis, but has reported on tennis as well. She's a sister. And so her take on it was that it's not what happened with Serena. And we all know by now, because it's been big news, right? Some feel that she lost the match because of these penalties. And the argument is that her opponent was also playing well, but because of these penalties, it cost her the game. She was angry at the umpire and saying that you're a thief, and then that escalated. She got a penalty for that. She breaks her racket. And I feel so bad for Naomi. Poor Naomi. She wins, and she, looks up to Serena, and she's just crying, sad. Because it's like you really want to win because you played hard. And she did play hard, but it's one of the things where will be disputed. And so it's all of this backlash that's coming out. And you can see everyone saying that, okay, Serena did act bad in the sense of her behavior, but men do it all the time, apparently. And I've seen this. I don't even watch tennis often, but I know this. I've seen so many tennis players slam their rackets and yell, and I do remember seeing this. I think there's a commercial about that. But this particular article says that she feels that it's not so much different when a woman does it, but that there's not consistencies amongst the umpire. That's her point of view. And I never thought about it that way. Because, again, you're seeing even Billie Jean King say, hey, Serena behaved badly. However, the umpire's wrong. She behaved badly, but however, the umpire is wrong. So it's just a different perspective. When I do think about it, I have to say it was refreshing to hear this reporter's or journalist's, her point of view. And from her, she's saying, listen, umpires, they make different calls, and that, maybe they need to be more consistent in their calling. So that's an interesting point. But I do believe a lot of times women, we have it hard, specifically Black women. We do. And especially for Serena, she feels like, why can't I express how I feel when I see males do the same thing and they can express how they feel and they're not losing points consistently. And that's what this article is saying, that, this particular umpire will take points away from men as well. So, it wasn't about sex or race. So it's interesting seeing that. And then the article, did you guys see this cartoon? I'm not even going to air it. But the cartoon in Australia where, I mean, it's just completely racist cartoon. And they're saying, oh, no, we're not being racist. So it's hard to see it any other way. Yeah, again, I'm not a big tennis watcher, but I can't imagine what she has gone through. I do know when her and her sister were starting, I mean, there were times where people were yelling racist slurs in the audience. So she's been through a lot, and I think it's fair for her to feel that she was treated unfairly, considering if you see other men can do these things and you can't. And it's the same week, right? Wasn't another tennis player? She changed her shirt because it was sweaty and realized on court that she put it on backwards. So she tried to fix it and then got a penalty. And she was like, wait, what? Men do this all the time. They sit shirtless. So, yeah. A lot of growth has to happen in that sport. But thank you so much, H, for sending me that article. It was nice to just see a different perspective again, not being somebody familiar with the sport. It was nice to just hear how different people translate, what happened. But I don't blame her. If you feel like you've been treated badly, you got to stand up and fight for yourself and say, this is unfair. You are a thief. So maybe she should have said it more calmly. I think that's maybe what it is. But I mean, if you feel like you're being robbed, who's calmly, right? Who's calmly saying, you're a thief? Excuse me, you're stealing that from me. Excuse me. This is unfair. That's hard to do, especially you're in the heat of the match. So it's a lot of rules in tennis. Again, that could be why I don't play tennis. I would like to, but it's a lot of rules. I don't really like a lot of rules put on me. I like to give out a lot of rules. I don't like to receive a lot of rules. I know if my husband is watching, he's like, you have a lot of rules. I don't like to receive them. I give them, but I don't like to receive them. Let's get into In Our World. We'll kick that off. In Our World this week is Florence preparing to smack into our East Coast. And everybody, there's state of emergencies everywhere between the Carolinas, Virginia, Maryland, DC, Delaware. Everyone's starting to prepare because they're just they don't know where exactly it's going to hit, but they do know this is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen, especially because a lot of people will be impacted that have never had to deal with hurricanes. Now, specifically this one with Florence, do you feel panicked, prepared, or who cares? And I don't see a lot of panic, I guess, because we're still a little far out and the projections getting closer to being, Saturday. At one point it was supposed to be Thursday, then they moved it to Friday, and now possibly impacting folks Saturday. Yeah. And so I'm also seeing a lot of who cares, because I have some family members that are a little bit further from the coast, and they're staying put. They're like, oh, we didn't get an evacuation order. And I don't know how many times I have to say this. If they are evacuating you, you should definitely leave. So I have one cousin, he had to leave. His area is being evacuated. Thank God he's not like, who cares? I'm going to try to ride this out. You're not a superhero. I'm glad he left, went to another family member's house more inland. But I say, if by the time they're warning you, it's bad. And Because I mean, think about it. If they telling you to leave the area, not put money into the economy by buying a lot of supplies and hunkering down, if they're telling you to leave, it's going to be bad. And then the other thing I think that people aren't connecting to, and I'm not saying you should panic, but I just feel like I think both extremes are bad. Who cares? It's like, you should care. And panicked, okay, fine. You don't want to be panicked. But literally, this is something that they're saying is about what? 400 miles long. I'm thinking in my mind, that's like from here to South Carolina, or that's like me driving to New York twice. Like 400 miles long. That's massively huge, huge. Winds possibly 125. And they're like, that's, that could be a low end 120. A low end 120. This thing is huge. So I'm just curious to ask you guys as well. Do you feel panicked, prepared, or who cares? And the other thing is, this is one storm. They're like, there's two more coming, but we ain't got time to really focus on these cats. They too far out. But we got to focus on this one. It's coming. Everybody be prepared. I was glad to see all the different states really just planning for an emergency just in case. Because one thing is so clear. Even though meteorology, that's a science. Come on. Don't you feel like sometimes they're like rolling craps at the crap table? Like, come on, lucky 7. It's going to be east. Crapped out. It's west. Like, they're doing the best that they can. And I remember when I worked in the news, excuse me, one of the reporters that I work with, popular reporter. Anyway, he came into work one day. He's a bit of a rebel. He didn't look like a rebel or seem like a rebel, but, he liked to shake things up. So you'd have to come into work and say, okay, well, any story ideas, because the idea would be you would want to enterprise your own stories. He was like, yeah, I have an idea. I'd like to investigate why the meteorologist, that's the one job where you can be inaccurate every day, but you still keep a job. And so it's like, why do we have them? It was, I think, my first meeting in the news. I wanted to laugh so bad, but everyone else was pissed. Like, people were sitting around like, you want us to diss a meteorologist? Yeah, that's a terrible idea. Why would we do it? And people were annoyed at him. And then it was funny because when he left the meeting, he was annoyed that no one took his thought serious. Like, he was like, why? They want a new story. That's a story because people want to know. People feel let down by the meteorologists all the time. But yet somehow they still keep jobs. Sorry. It still makes me laugh nowadays. But now I'm kind of like, I want to see that investigation. I'm more removed from it. I'm like, maybe I should feature that report on my show. But yeah, so anytime I watch the news and I'm really trying to figure out what's happening, I definitely look at the European model. They tend to be the most accurate. Sorry, US models. And the weather people, meteorologists, women, men, anytime they are the people who follow the European model, they tend to be more accurate. So that's why a lot of times you'll hear them say, well, the US model says this and the European models say this. Go with the European model. For some reason, they tend to be more accurate, right? But it's still crapshoots. Like, it's still like rolling the dice. Come on, lucky 7. Snake eyes. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't play craps either. But I'm just, repeating what I've seen in movies and walking on the streets and the cafeteria until people get caught in school. Anyway, yeah, so they're just trying to figure this thing out. And so to me, the best thing is look at the European model, right? If you're listed, prepare yourself, whether it be leave or have supplies for weeks, and when we say supplies, like whether it be a generator, if you're just happen to be struck with the wind, and you lose power, or whether it be extra water to flush your toilets, not just drinking water, but water to live. Yeah, East Coasters, let's prepare ourselves. For everybody who has family as well, I'm praying for you and your family members, just praying for everybody to be safe as we ride this out. Again, so much is changing. If you listen to Political Pop earlier this week, I talked about California. They put out a new bill that says that they would like to be 100% clean energy by the year 2045. And, California, you guys out there tend to be further ahead on a lot, whether it be healthy eating, healthy living. And for them to say as a state, this is what we plan to do. And when you think clean energy, think solar power, wind power. Yeah, by 2045. And so if they're willing to do that, how bad must climate change be? How bad must it be? It's happening. And I know the earth changes all the time and these things happen all the time, but this is different, very different. But I'm just curious. A lot of you do email and leave comments. If you're up for it, let me know. What do you think about this when they're saying being prepared for these hurricanes, and you hear, it's dominating the news? When you see it, do you feel a feeling of panic, right? Should we panic for this? Do you feel like, okay, this is good, it's helping me be prepared? Or it's kind of like, who cares? I'm tired of hearing this. You can tell I totally care, because I'm forever talking about, like, look, we got to watch out for each other. You watch this podcast, I'm about us letting each other know, because I feel like that's all we have is each other. So we have to say what we're seeing and what we're feeling and share that information. So, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what actually happens versus what they're forecasting. And one other umbrella I have to say, in case you did not listen to Political Pop, but you heard about Trump. Gosh, this guy. First, so he comes out this week. I didn't mention this, but he comes out this week saying that he thought that the situation with Harvey in Puerto Rico, that they handled it very well. They did a great job, considering what, nearly 3,000 people died, considering what, people are still asking for aid to bury relatives. So you still have people not buried. So much devastation still remains. It was interesting, if you really listen to the comments, he kind of pushed it all on the government in Puerto Rico, saying that, their electrical grid was dead. They were bankrupt. And so we were working with a lot. They're an island and we did a good job. Coupled with, and this is where the Political Pop comes in, coupled with the report that came out that said that $9.8 million was moved from the FEMA budget to the ICE budget. Right. And I don't know. I don't know if you were thinking this, but every time I was watching the news about ICE and seeing all these detention centers, I literally was like, well, I wonder who paid for this and when. Because these are like new detention centers. And it made a lot of news with the kids' detention centers. I was unfamiliar with kid detention centers until they started really making the news. And I'm like, these are new facilities. Who paid for this? So apparently it was FEMA, a couple other agencies, took money and transferred that to ICE for more detention centers. And so when we hear 9.8 million, that's a lot of money. But the Homeland Security is like, us 1% of the budget. And that budget wasn't for disaster relief. We will see. Still FEMA's budget. But according to the document said, no, it was for disaster relief. Yeah, they're just busy playing politics while we, the people, prepare for a hurricane unlike any we've experienced, the majority of us have experienced. So yeah, that is going to wrap up in our world. Now, one more thing before we go. I said I was going to do this, and I thought about not doing it, but I was like, hey, some people may be in watching movies, and I want you to think about this. So last week I mentioned it, right? So Being Bobby Brown, the Bobby Brown movie was on BET. I don't know if you saw it. That is worth it. Watch it. it was worth it. So good. Two, it was a 2-night event. I'm watching it with my husband, right? And anytime I watch a show with my husband, he gets annoyed with me because he'll ask me a question, right? So I'll answer the question. Then he'll go, shh. And it annoys me. I'm like, dude, why did you ask the question? And literally, I am that person who talks because I'm like, that makes it fun. And people get annoyed. And so I'm just curious with my subscribers and listeners, SoundCloud as well. Thank you so much for those of you that listen on SoundCloud. Don't even watch. It takes a lot to listen. I personally feel, here's the debate. I feel that space is inserted so you can talk. Kind of like a little space, not just to laugh, especially soap operas. I don't really watch soap operas, but it's always like, if you don't watch soap operas, telenovas, right? It'll be like, no. Long, pregnant pause, deep stare, confusion, up, down, look, up, down, look. That's what they do. Then it's an answer. Yes. And so that's the perfect time to say, oh, no, she didn't. She didn't know that happened. It happened, girl. It happened. And then the person says, yes. And that's what you say. He being honest. All right. So, yeah, I'm not loud in the movie theater. I keep it quiet because I do not like it in the movie theater. I'm like, please let Denzel act. You can't act for me. So I like it to be quiet, but if I know you, I like to talk with you. Yeah, so let me know. Help us in our home, because some people will be home this week watching the storm. Other people may just be like, I cannot watch this storm. Let's just watch a movie. And if you find yourself talking, or your significant other or friend talking, let me know. Did you get mad and say, shh? Were you the one being shushed? Maybe it's just me, but I was annoyed. I literally took out my phone and spent the whole night texting my homie. I was like, oh my goodness, did you see Bobby Brown? Crazy. Oh, Whitney. It's really Whitney all these years. I owe Bobby an apology. No, Bobby, no. It was awesome. I was glad to be able to have those emotions, even if it was just on the phone. So, yeah, just about to wrap up this show. Can I just say, those of you that left, loving messages from my show last week, thank you so much. Last week really was an emotional show for me, and it made this week very tough. Very tough. So it was nice in a sense to be able to share something very personal with you and just seeing your response. So for those of you that have emailed, thank you so much for opening up to me as well. That means the world. It's nice to know that we're not alone, so that was so nice. I really appreciate it. And thank you for just, again, joining me on this journey. I just really appreciate you. I cannot say thank you enough. So, as always, you can email me, DanellaNOW.com. You can leave your comments. You can DM me at DanellaNOW. Please, for those of you that are listening, that are watching, that have family members, even if you are somebody that's going to be affected by Florence, know we will all pray together for each other. I usually say, I hope you have an incredible weekend. I do hope you have an incredibly safe weekend. And I will see you next week.